But the other one that I had was generational change and generational suffering. I've had this on my heart for, well, it's been months now, but this week especially, I was like, I want to talk about this. I haven't. We've talked about it a time or two, but I mean, obviously, perspectives change and opinions change, and that's the awesome part about opinions, is you can be open and change these.
Right.
I think that's the.
Or a healthy person should be open to
Right.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the best thing that Joe Rogan has ever said is, you are not your opinions.
I think that whole mentality that he has is one of the main reasons why he's as popular as he is.
Yes.
Because he's that good aspect that's in all of us that we strive for. He is exemplifying that in all of his conversations, in him being graceful with people he disagrees with, he's like that standard that we all know we need to have and want for our own life, for us, the way we treat other people. He's showing that every day, and just being open-minded and open to discourse with anybody, and it's a really
it's pretty special.
It is, yeah, 100%.
Because, I mean, keeping your emotions in check is not easy, especially on something you're passionate about.
Your ego just steps right in there.
Yeah.
Says,
It's like, this is my place.
Yeah, I'm entitled to feel better than you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like it's.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's impressive how he can do that, and I don't think you can dispute that.
No,
whatsoever.
For sure.
But what's your thoughts? What's been going through your mind?
Well, yeah. What do you?
What do you mean? What is generational change? What is it? We'll start there.
Well, when I hear the term generational change,
or generational suffering, or generational baggage, or whatever.
Yeah, I think of what comes to mind is like the whole nature versus nurture argument, or your epigenetic history. Like, there are things that we are all born with that we can do nothing about, right? And then there are things that we are born into that we can change and we can make an impact on. And I always look at, like, I always think, not that I even grew up in a alcoholic family or anything like that, but I always think of that situation when there's kids who grow up with alcoholism in the home. It's almost always like 50-50 split, like extremes on both ends. Like, the kids either like grow up into be alcoholics themselves, or they just completely abstain from alcohol. Like, there's
complete
no
sobriety. Yeah,
there's usually no middle of the road. It's like it kind of forces you to choose a path early on in life, and it just kind of exacerbates itself as you go along.
Right.
But there's no specific issues that I think of particularly with, like, generational suffering that aren't I don't know. It's more of like when I look at what I want my legacy to be, I think of there being no limits on my children's potential. Like, that's what I think I want my life to have meant. Like, so number one, I want to leave them with a relationship with the Lord that's unshakable. And then I also want to leave them with the mindset, the tools, whatever necessary for them to be able to accomplish whatever they want to in their lives. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that looks different for every single person on earth, because different people are starting from different places, or they have different hurdles to overcome from, like the way they were raised and mindsets they were given. And I mean, it's tough to extrapolate it for like the whole country, but
I'm thinking more
individually.
Families, yeah.
Yeah, for individual families, I would say the biggest things are all mindset based. Like, perspective on life is a huge thing that gets passed down. and you can just call this small or big-minded, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of kids who are going to be born with the mindset of, I'm going to achieve at X level, and there's a lot of kids who are going to be born with, I'm going to achieve at Y level. And it's just simply passed into them, from what they grow up observing. So that's, I mean, what do you say as far as like the state of that in our country, or?
I would just like, are people seeing this? Like, does other people think about what they're gonna leave?
Okay, that's a really good question there, and I don't think so. I don't think most people think this way.
Me either. That's why.
Yeah.
This is just why I like to talk about it and cover it.
Okay.
Is it real? You know what I mean? And to me, it's clear.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, cause like, I was thinking about my bloodline, and so I looked at, cause money. I'm gonna talk about financial wealth. So money equals opportunities. Would we agree?
In today's world, yes.
Yes. Or influence.
Yeah.
So I look at my grandpa, which I don't know very well on my dad's side. I'm going to talk about my dad's side. I don't know very well. Small farmer, okay? Raised my dad. Not great financially. Dad gets it, is lower, busts his butt, gets up to middle class, right? And that's where I started. But in the middle of there, obviously, the values is what really matters in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Raising and him growing as a person. He put these values of security and safety and starting yourself off great. So I started off a middle class because I got those hard work values and started here.
Yeah.
Okay, so for between now, I'm starting where he was, but at middle class. So I have the opportunity to, by the time I'm his age, to have this platform of like multi-millionaire touching hundreds of thousands of people. Like my dad, his influence was his community. Like he has a very strong voice in our community, right? So if by the time I'm done, I would like to have a very large voice in our state, so that by the time my kid gets there,
they're influencing the country.
Yeah. And then their influence is the world. Yep. So that's like where I'm like, I need to get here with not just money, obviously, but influence as well.
Yes, I think that was a very intricate, detailed, and articulate way to say that the generational mindset requires you to try and leave not just the earth, but your specific offspring better than you got.
Yes.
It's that old principle. When you borrow something, you give it back better than you found it. It's just the same concept, but stretched out over your generational lineage. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we were all given something, and we have, Lord willing, 80 plus years to take that and make it better for the next one. And I do worry that not many people can even see past Friday night,
right? Let
alone what they're leaving behind to their children. And because I hear all the time the mentality of like, you just can't take it with you, spend it before you die, or what? Just this like, and to me it's short-sighted. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm going to try and figure out a balance between letting my children grow up knowing what not actual physical hunger is, but hunger for, achieving things on their own.
They have to know, like, how you got there.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, obviously, like, I think about, like, you look at, like, Rome and the great nations that made it to the peak, right? Eventually they hit a spot where they crashed,
and it's decadence. Always decadence.
Right? So if the same thing with your generational wealth and your influence, right? If you get here and then this person's, you have not taught them, like, or raised them in the way where they can see how you got here. This is how we did it. Okay, this is how hard we grinded to get here. Yeah. You have to grind that hard just to stay. Now, if you want to go beyond that, you've got to work harder than I did.
Yeah.
So, and if they're like, no, I'm just going to wait till I get everything, well, then you dropped.
Yeah.
And now the next generation's got to start over.
Yes.
Is that
100%.
Which is
And this is one of the things that I respect about your family so much, is because in order for, like, you can't just have the wealth building mindset or whatever. That alone is not enough. There also has to be like an organizational building component of it, because you got to build your family like an organization.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Patrick McDavid studies wealth a lot, like generational wealth. And
Financial or yeah.
And he's always breaking it down how it's like the real great family lineages can go like 7+ generations. But he's like past 7 generations, every generation he breaks down like, okay, this one is the key characteristic that made it for people to get to 4 generations of wealth, and here's how they got to 5 generations of wealth. And it's all about like the further up you go, the more these families run like an organization, like they're all like members of the same team. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's so cool.
Yeah, you can see everybody we know, our family's lives are just kind of like at the first tier or at the first level of like, we're all a family, but we're operating in our own individual pursuits.
Yes.
Right? Well, as you get generational wealth and things start to coalesce, now the family's pursuits become in alignment.
Right.
And you start to see a whole family pursuing something together.
Right.
Which is where I think the opportunity to leverage your past resources and engage the work ethic and the hunger necessary to like work with something on something together as a family. You know what I mean? It's tough to, the only differentiation I have between that is like, not every person in a family is going to want to be, like for me, a realtor or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has different interests and stuff like that. But I do think at some point you can have a family organization large enough that you can
tapping into
you can
all
fit everybody's
values, yes.
talents and passions and all that kind of stuff into it.
I mean, you can break this down really small scale though. When I'm thinking back to a conversation we had about when we were in the Wilbur house with Morgan, when we talked about if we came out and just would like cut out alcohol as our family, because our family is tight. We kind of operate like that. Like if I needed help with something, you would help me. If you need help with something, like we are already kind of starting to bounce off like that, really small scale. But like even just down to those little details in life that like, oh, if someone looked at our family, they're like, oh, they all are against this.
Right.
They're all fighting that battle.
It's them versus X.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if someone's thinking, okay, well, it's not in my generation, so I'm not going to do anything about it, right? Well, you've got to build that team relation within your family now, and that can start with something small like deciding that we as a family are going to fight this battle.
Yeah.
Publicly, daily, collectively, we're going to fight this battle no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also hard to do because not everybody agrees on even small values. And if you're working with, I mean, how many we got in our 10 even? Yeah. It's hard to get everyone aligned perfectly.
Yeah, that's why teams are tough to begin with. But, to me, I don't know how else to, I guess I don't know how else to love. This is just like...
Than fighting?
Well, than to think of the next generation. Like, ever since I was a kid, like, I knew I wanted to have kids. But it's like, as I tried to use the objective part of my brain to analyze the world and all the data inputs that are out there and come up with an amalgamation of a decision about how I want my life to look, it's like young Bobby was trying to love his children before they were even born enough that I achieved a certain level of something before trying to have kids. You know what I mean? So that there would be like a foundation in place for my family to go off of. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. I know that my mom and my dad, like, put this ultimate selfless nature into me, and it's so clear to me now. Like, I obviously had no idea what I was doing. Until
you look back.
Right, until you look back and kind of see what's going on. But like, it's so clear. Like they would just shirt off to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, if they know you, they'll rip their shirt off and give it to you for any time, anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, they'll drop anything at any weekend. It's unbelievable how amazing they are at that, and it's put that in me. But also, now that when I learned about generational wealth and I started thinking about what I'm going to leave, right, it became so much easier to work for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not working for me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it may look selfish, but I'm not working for me.
Right.
Which makes it like I won't do anything for myself.
Yeah.
But I'll do something for somebody else in a heartbeat. So if I have trained my mind, decided I'm working for my next generation, like there's a whole new type of motivation on that.
Yeah.
When you're working for your kid, and then obviously when it gets here, I'm sure it's changed, but
yeah, well,
motivation has gone through the roof.
Yeah, and it's Mel and I were just talking about this the other day too in the car. It was like it's like we finally start to get reaping the benefits of all the sacrifice and dedication and hard work and stuff like that. Now that Mava is here, we want to have like incorporate like yes this building mindset with also this like enjoyment mindset of like having fun and stuff like that. Like that's starting to like blossom into our life and stuff. And what we were talking about the other day was just like neither one of us will like spend any real money on ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Like we will buy a house as an investment or what, you know, anything like that.
Yeah.
We won't blink an eye. But like for me to go into a store and spend $100 on myself, like that happens like a couple times a year.
Yeah.
It's not,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's me and Morgan are the same way. The funny thing about Morgan is she will shop for 4 or 5 times a week and never buy a thing for 3 years.
Yeah.
What are you shopping for then? It's like, you know in your mind, you're like, oh, I want this so bad. And then you'll never buy it because it's for yourself.
That's the definition of window shopping right there.
Yeah. It cracks me up. I'm like, why are you even spending your time on this?
That's funny.
It just... But I am fascinated. I think this is like part way... I mean, at least my fascination with people that have started from the bottom, like in poverty, and they crawl out of there and they go from literally the bottom to the top of the food chain. Like, that journey is so far.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm here and I'm busting my butt and I can... the ceiling is so far away. Not that there is a ceiling, but it's so high to get to the sky, man. It's like... How did you get there? And that's why I love reading these books about how these people are doing what they're doing.
For real. And the way you just said that made me think of it. It's like that adversity at the beginning of life has a huge part in determining that. Like, I think the biggest detriment we can do to the next generation is to try to soften all of life's blows for them. It's, I don't know. I think that's like the antithesis of building generational wealth. I think that's how you promote an environment or foster an environment where the generations are declining. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the greatest thing, my dad, pretty darn successful, right? The greatest thing he ever did for me was not just like transfer that along to me at a young age.
Yeah, right.
Like I started out on my own. And it's kind of, you know, like that's the best thing you can do.
I ran into this philosophical problem, moral problem early on. And when I started coaching, I had to make, the decision of how I want to coach, right? And I kind of got thrown into it. So I wasn't really prepared for it at all. And I was just an assistant coach, but I had a lot of influence. So I was like, I mean, what's my objective? What am I doing? How is my coaching philosophy going to affect these kids' life in the generation, right? I'm thinking about this generation coming up. So I decided right then and there that I want to be the hard coach. I am not going to take it easy on you. I don't care who you are, what you look like. You are going to have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mix that you power through this, obviously, I give encouragement when kids make breakthroughs. That it's like I'm going to harp on you and hound on you and push you to your limits, and you're going to hate me for it, and then you're going to do that one thing. You're going to make that breakthrough, and I'm going to be the first one there giving you that high five and let's go, man. And it's like, yes, that because getting affirmation from someone that gives you affirmation all the time, it's kind of meaningless.
Right.
But the guy that's on you all the time and is pushing you,
demanding better of you.
Yes.
When those people compliment you,
yeah,
it hits hard.
So I've kind of like took the stance of it is my responsibility as an educator and a coach and an influence on the next generation to harden them up. I mean, if that makes a parent mad, well,
part of the whole expression of tough love.
Yes.
Like,
it's because I love your kid.
True love is one human being willing to hurt your feelings a little bit to help you, achieve something that you wouldn't have done that without. Like, and don't get me wrong, there's a spectrum, there's kids who are born into this family who's like, okay, starting at 6 months, we're training for the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is your whole life.
That's a bit extreme.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes, absolutely.
There's obviously that level of things that is not healthy whatsoever, but at the same time, that's also how you make Olympians.
Yes.
So I don't know what to tell you there. Everybody's got to choose their own flavor of spice, but
I don't know. I'm going to revert back to what you said about raising your kid in the mix of development and growth, but also in the happiness piece of it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from being satisfied with your efforts. Like, you're not going to be satisfied with a half-hearted effort. Like, if you did not give your 100% that day, you know it.
Yeah. You're going to feel like garbage.
But, like, on the opposite side, it's like, I look at my life. So if I pretty much go hard for 14 straight hours. And I'm coming to realize that, like, after 14 hours, that's kind of like, I'm pretty much done. Like, it's okay to be satisfied.
You lose effectiveness after that anyways.
Right. I'm like, it's okay to be, like, that was a good day, man. Like, most people aren't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay to stop and just enjoy, like, that last hour of the day. Just sit there and enjoy, like, that hard work and effort that you put in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of picks you up for the next day.
Yep.
It kind of rejuvenates and gets you ready for the day coming. And that's kind of been where I've shifted to, because for so long it's like I just busted my butt for 12 straight hours.
Yeah.
I'm going to get home, eat, and then grind for another 3.
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't burn you out.
Right.
So it's just finding that enjoyment in the grind. I think that's where it's at. It's just allowing yourself to be satisfied.
That kind of like, you zoom out a little bit, and that's what I imagine like the 3 stages are of life. Like, you get in terms of generationally. You have you growing up making your own way. You have you as a parent, and then you have the grandparent stage, right? The first stage is all just grind hard, work, build a platform, build a foundation.
I heard somebody say sacrifice your 20s.
Yeah.
That's like...
So then the middle stage can be a combination of work and joy.
Yes.
Right? And then the final stage can be nothing but joy.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Yeah. I mean, that's a little rough, but it's like a good approximation of, like, you get to the grandparent stage and you don't have to be the one that's teaching them discipline anymore. It's like you get to teach them the joy part only. Like, you can, granted, that's not the way life plays out exactly, but grandparents are also a good source of lessons and discipline and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But the main brunt of it falls, like, yourself when you're young, you got to have that crazy level of discipline and achieve these things so that when you are, and I know my life path is different than most people's, but having children in my 30s is kind of like, now I see the opportunity to mix in the joy
early on.
Yeah. So then, I think it's a great combination for our kids too, because now they can see us working and playing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not just
grinding.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've thought about this a lot recently, and it's like I think it'd be very difficult to grind and work as hard as you needed to get to where to change your generation while focusing on raising a kid.
one would be neglected.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not giving your best effort to one.
Yep.
Right. But I mean, when we just talked about generation, like the values, how important that is within that generational change. Like, it's got to be your focus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're gonna leave them off better off, they got to know how. Like, you have to be focused on them to get them there.
Yep.
And to prepare for that stage they're gonna be at. And it's tough to do.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not in that situation right now.
Like most things in life, it's all about perspective, balance, and just trying to thread the needle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do the best you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, quick pause. I got to pee.